그 동영상이 지금 이제 뭐 괜찮을까요? 위치가 저쪽이 있습니다. So microphone is better. Microphone is better.
이럴 거면은
I thought it was like this. So microphone is better.
저도 그렇게 할게요.
야,
저 그냥 여기다 하는 건지 알았는데 이런 식으로 할게요.
두 분 다 핸드마이크 쓰시는 거예요?
Whenever you're ready.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next session will begin shortly, so please come into the hall and be seated. Thank you. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We will now begin our next session, Navigating Asia's Uncertain Future, Lessons for Tomorrow's Leaders. And I'd like to introduce our distinguished speakers, Lim짜른랏, former leader of Thailand's Move Forward Party, and Lee Jae-young, chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee of People Power Party. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them with a warm round of applause.
시작할까요? 네, 반갑습니다.
Shall we begin?
국민의힘의 지금 국제위원장을 맡고 있는 이재영입니다. 지금부터는
I'm the
편의를
chair
위해서
of international affairs
영어로
at the
대담을
PPP.
하기로 하겠고요. 제 영어
So I
실력이
will
좀
be
부족하더라도
proceeding
좀 양해
in English. I would like to ask
부탁드리겠습니다.
for
네,
your kind
감사합니다.
understanding about the level of
Welcome
my
everyone.
English
Welcome to
proficiency.
this very exciting session. When they first told me that I have an opportunity to meet Kun Pita, I was very excited. Kun Pita is not just a person, a political figurehead in Thailand, but his name really resonates a lot of different good things throughout the Asia. I know we are facing one of the most difficulties, or let's say democracy is facing very difficult time throughout the world. Yet, I think Kun Pita resonates, or he represents a hope, something that we dream of, and something that we all wish that everyone can share globally. And what he has achieved throughout only in such a short time, actually, in 5 years, right? Since you've been the politician.
Yes, but you've been far too kind to me now. But
I think I was asked to do that. No, you really is a fascinating,
Thank you.
fascinating story.
Yes.
So thank you very much, everyone, to be here. So I introduced myself in Korean, but right now I'm serving. I myself is a former parliamentarian in Korea. I served in Korean Parliament from 2012 to 2016. We call the 19th Assembly in South Korea. I represent, or I'm part of, a conservative party in Korea. Recently, we had a very, very bad result in Korea. Our Conservative Party had a landslide loss just in April. And I'm actually very interested to hear from Kun Pita how he was so successful running an amazing campaign and resulting in such a great success in Thailand. But let me finish there and let's ask questions. Kun Pita,
Sure.
welcome to Korea.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to come back to South Korea.
So how many times have you been to Korea?
Twice this year.
Okay.
So I've been asked to speak at a university, a Korea university once when it comes to political science and campaign management. And this time I'm returning for ALC. So it's a good opportunity to be back.
Oh, I'm sure those students...
Weather is a bit different, but it's always warm and welcome when I return to South Korea.
I'm sure those students were excited to see you when you were at the Korea University.
Korea University.
Right. By the way, to let everyone know, this show or this session is being streamed live in 조선일보's website. So I'm sure your 12 million followers, I heard, right? Your 12 million followers in Thailand might be watching this.
That's the social media followers.
Wow. Followers of followers.
Combine of like Twitter and X and Instagram and Facebook, but there's probably some repetition across platforms, so I'm not going to boast on that.
Well, I'm sure your popularity actually is beyond 12 million.
It's really about the engagement, not the numbers.
Okay. Well, but number speaks a lot. I mean, the vote that your party received when you were running a campaign.
Yes.
That was something no one expected, isn't it?
I'm not sure about others, but I can speak for myself and my leadership team that we expected it, the result. The campaign that we ran, we call it precision politics, in the sense that we look at a couple of factors. We call it 4C framework. Let's start with that so that we get the conversation going with the parliamentarians here or the politicians that is listening from all around the world. We have 4C framework, and that's called, that starts with the candidate itself in each district. Second C is competitors. A third C is the count.
Right.
And the fourth C is the constituencies.
Right.
So the candidate is strong or not strong. The competitor is, what's the weak point? And count is to look at the previous historical results in the past in each district. And candidacy, whether, what keeps them awake at night, how old they are they over 40 or under 40, and things like that. So when you combine all that out of the entire political canvas, we can be very precise in the way we run the campaign. And the last time I said out loud in a public media, I said my target was 160 just a week before last year's election. I said the expectation or the target was 160, and we got 151.
And that's out of 500 seats.
That's out of 400 seats.
400 seats, sorry.
Because there's party list of 100 and there's a district MP of 400. So
Right.
out of that 400, I wanted 160 combined from these 4C factors. Like I used, whether the candidate is strong, whether the candidate is dominant, whether the competitor is not so strong and weak, whether the count in the previous historical elections we've been growing, and then we look at the constituencies and we ask, what keeps them awake at night.
Right.
And then when I put all these criteria together, then I get 160, target quick wins that I know out of that 400 from that framework of thinking. And also all my resources, all my time, all my policies, all my platform are focused, prioritized on those things. So that's why when nobody might not expect the result of a 3-year-old party and a rookie leader like me leading a political campaign 9 years after a military coup in Thailand, that we'll be able to disrupt Thai politics. But it's not by chance. It's really by the hard work and management and data-driven, as well as the will of the people of Thailand, that they are fed up with the previous or the old regime of ways of running things, especially after the military coup that happened yesterday, 10 years ago.
Yesterday, 10 years ago.
That's when the
10th
military
anniversary of last coup.
of the most recent coup. I don't want to use the word last.
Okay, most recent one. So
Because
there's to
always,
be more.
in Thailand, there's always probability of military intervention. But 10 years have passed. 1 year ago, people of Thailand have spoken that they wanted a new narrative, a new change, a new consensus. And so because of that, the mismanagement of the economy and things like that, and they felt like, election is a way of expressing the way I want in the country. And so those factors combined of our efficiency and effectiveness in our campaign management and also the will of the people of Thailand. And that's why we got 14 million votes, or about 40% of the votes, and also the districts combined to be the largest political party in Thailand so far.
So I made a mistake by saying 12 million. It's actually 14 million.
It's 14 million, yes.
Well, that 4C, the framework that you just laid out, I mean, I think there's got to be a bit more than that, because that 4C framework is kind of campaign methodology that probably everyone wants to use throughout the world, right? I mean, we have our own campaign. We try to be very scientific, methodical, and we try to go through the so-called playbook. But the result that you have, we saw through your campaign, I think there's got to be more to it. I mean, so for example, it leads to my next question. So, The Economist, there's a democracy index.
Yes,
last year,
by the publication, The Economist.
In fact, they mentioned a lot about your campaign in that result as well.
Yes, I know.
It says, the outsized political influence of the military in Pakistan and Thailand means that elections are far from being free, fair, or competitive. It was the word that I saw there. So it goes... The 4Cs that you brought in is how you run the campaign. But although you've said a little bit more, there's got to be more than that. We run the campaign. We are politicians. There's always people's needs and their desire are always reflected in the campaign.
Right.
What other message did you have throughout the campaign that really moved the people's mind?
I see. So I think there's two parts to his question. So what kind of policies or what kind of communication message that I use to win, And the second part was about the democracy index and the outsized military influence from The Economist. So I'm going to structure my answer to order of your question. So we campaign on very simple message that if Thailand wants to move forward, it has to go through 3 Ds. First is to demilitarize, second is to demonopolize, and third is to decentralize. Demilitarize meaning that defense is still important, but we have to make sure that the military is professional and that it protects Thailand from external threat, but never mingle with the internal affairs of the country. We have to be a civilian government. This might draw some parallel with the Korean example in 1987, 1 year before the Olympics, in 1993, between, before two Kims, right, the presidents. So the South Korean people might understand what I'm trying to talk about. Second part is to demonopolize, of course, trying to make sure that the SMEs have a fighting chance and people have the right to work. And third, decentralize to make sure that Bangkok is not Thailand and Thailand is not Bangkok. Those of you who have traveled will have to understand what I'm trying to say when you travel extensively throughout the country in terms of governance, in terms of budget, in terms of urbanization, for example. So that was very simple. I want to make sure that Thailand is competitive. I want to grow economy while reducing inequality. And we can do that by 3 Ds. Okay. And that's like the major contribution of explaining what we're trying to do. Right. Now, The Economist Index, we probably need to talk a bit about the background to give some context to the people who's listening here and listening through our live as well. So the Economist, the publication, they do a ranking of democracy out of all the countries. I want to say maybe 160 something. I've been following it for years. I think number one is probably Norway. The last one, number 163, 64 is probably Myanmar, our neighbor, or Afghanistan, for example. South Korea, I want to say in the top 20.
We are.
That's my guess.
20. We are actually categorized as established democracy.
Full democracy, right?
Right.
So Thailand has been in the mid-range for a long time. So flawed democracy.
I think you guys were ranked
South
67
Korea,
or something like that.
South Korea has always been full democracy.
Exactly.
So we're
full democracy.
flawed.
Although I
democracy.
do have something against that, but that's for another conversation.
That's a different ball game where I get to sit over there and ask you questions.
Right.
But to be precise, I want to say that we are at about 63. The year before was 55. So we improved a lot because we had that election after that military coup, and the election went well, and it looks like, the people, with the voting turnout of 77%, it looks like a good democratic civil society. However, it felt very, very strong, so it will 8 ranks, right? 63 minus
just
55.
over a year.
So it fell 8 ranks. I think number 3 in the world, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and then Thailand, I want to say. Something like that. I can't remember exactly, but in that order. So a huge blow to Thai democracy. And then if you look in details, it will say that Thailand has a strong institution. When it comes to democracy, it looks like you have a lower house, you have an upper house, you have opposition, you have independent organizations. The press is relatively free. That's probably ticking all the box out. But the one that we almost or failed in that index is the political culture. So it looks like that we have a political institution to take care of the problems. And if you draw a parallel of all those things with countries like Germany or countries like South Korea, then it looks like we have the same structure when it comes to democracy. But it's the hard infrastructure that looks like we're a democracy. But it's the soft culture, the political culture, that we failed in that index. I mean, I didn't say this, The Economist said this. That, the normalization of military coups, 12 coups, by the way. We've been democracy since...
In how many years? 12 coups in how many years?
So since 1932.
So you had coups...
So let's say it's 100 years. 100 years divided by 12, that's every 5 to 6 years, there will be a military coup or military coup attempt. So normalization of coups, normalization of judicial attack, party dissolution, which I'm facing at the moment. It will be the second time in 5 years that our movement's party got dissolved in the past. And also I'm facing that risk in the upcoming 2 weeks, 3 weeks time as well. So it's those kind of culture that probably the Economist or the international arena might not understand, and that's why they say that Thailand is still a flawed democracy. Now, this is how I'm going to end this question. Around the world, democratic backsliding is happening.
That's true.
So, flawed democracy is a blurred line with competitive autocracy. Competitive autocracy is almost like that kind of power of grip, one-man show kind of authoritarian regime. Doesn't have to be Thailand per se, but that kind of authoritarian regime that allows election once in a while. Right. But you always have ways to prevent elected power or the choice of the people to be the case that governs. For my case, I'm the people's choice, but the parliamentary chaos, for example. And so the elected power, I got the majority. I form a coalition of 312 out of 500. So that's pretty stable. But the appointed senators by the military blocked me. So they said, they abstained. They wouldn't let me govern. So I'm the people's choice in a parliamentary chaos, for example. So that's a kind of blurred line that remains to be seen around the world, whether this is democracy, this is flawed democracy, this is a hybrid regime, or this is a competitive autocracy. It means that all the Democrats in this room and all the Democrats listening around the world have to be smarter and have to have that moral courage to speak out, because it could be your turn one day that something like this happen. So we got to be together with our solidarity and definitely smarter when it comes to these things.
So courage is a very important word that you use. But it's just from what you just said, it seems like the establishment, you may call that our military or monopolies or families, whatever you call it, it seems like they have figured out how to oppress. So you mentioned about normalization of coup. Every 5-6 years they go out and they oppress people, or they put we call it in Korea, cold water on these democratic movement. So since they know how to do it and they do it very well, they've figured it out, and it's been working for 100 years. How can you believe, or do you believe, that your movement, what you've shown in last election, can continue on?
We got to win more. We got to do two things. We're going to keep winning. We're going to keep winning. Winning elections and domination of ideas. It has to be two things. For me, when I look at what's going on and how to strategize against such a vicious cycle like this, as you mentioned, I look 4 election cycles ahead. I just don't look one election after the election. If I want to change Thailand, I want to change Thailand sustainably through parliamentary system to the certain extent that when we win this and when we dominate ideas with the younger generation of military, younger generation of monopolies, that they understand what I'm trying to do. So that when we win to that level where we are the undisputed leader of democratic Thailand, they are ready to be working with me because they totally understand, and I have dominated the ideas that a full democracy with inclusive growth, with bottom-up economics, with environmental rights and everything that we do is beneficial to them. I'm a bridge,
Right.
and not a bomb to you. I'm a resource and not a rebel.
Right.
I'm a consensus and not a conflict.
Right.
So it takes time for me to explain to them, what I'm trying to say and why it matters, and look at South Korea democratic struggle, 1987, 1988 in the Olympics, 1993, and the high-tech and high-touch economy that the South Korea has, for example. No two countries are alike, but look at all these things that once the dictatorship is out, creativity is allowed through trial and error. Innovation is allowed through trial and error. Obviously, a lot of government subsidies throughout that time that I understand, but still, the kind that democracy makes sense for innovation and also for creativity as well.
Right.
So for that kind of understanding, we'll be able to fight what is called the tyranny of the minority. Your question can be summarized in one word.
Okay.
Tyranny of the minority.
Okay.
Is that top 1% that already has it figured out what the secret sauce should be, that they can keep elected power at bay. I mean, it used to be military coup all around the world. It can be judicial coup.
Right.
It used to be warfare all around the world. Now it can be lawfare. It used to be violence on the street. Now it can be violence in the courtroom. You see what I'm trying to say? So, yeah, the tyranny of the minority is a kind of concept that they have all these mechanisms that stops people's choice or elected power to govern and reflect, to have that kind of linkage with the people who voted for them. So.
Right. But again, I'm just going to throw out these questions. You had that movement in Thailand. You had the yellow shirts. You had the red shirts. Each time, Thai people, they wanted to change. They wanted democracy. They wanted a better future. Yet, again, I have to come back to this question. Establishments, very effective. What makes you different than those previous movements?
So I feel like even if it's the control of the agenda, the right to peaceful assembly is part of democracy, that's not the route that we wanted to choose. Like I said, loud and clear, that if I want to change Thailand, we decided that we want to form a party, run for elections, enter parliament, and change the country even slowly but sustainably, at the right rhythm, rather than organizing a lot of political protests to my political advantage, systematically hiring people to go on the streets and wear the same color shirt. I'm not accusing that they did, but I said, there's some resources that is required for people to systematically go out. But organically, if people want to get on the street to have that ability to control their agenda after the election, that's part of democracy. So that's not the path that I wanted to choose. It's different this time, and it's going to be more effective this time because we are choosing the sustainable route through parliamentary change. That finally, when we keep winning and winning and winning more and more than last time, as well as dominating the ideas of what alternative Thailand could look like and how mid-range soldiers like you could play a part. Police, how are they going to play a part? Judges, how are they going to play a part? And that's what we've been doing all along. So even in the most heavily dense military district, we won. So by election, I feel like there's
So there is a hope.
There's hope, and there's collapse from within. The military that wants human rights, that want to be professional defense for the country, that wanted reform by itself. I think this resemblance story is about South Korea as well. When there's the collapse from within, there's a newer generation of people who are supposed to be your opponent, supposed to be your competitor, starting to agree with you that this is not the way to go. This is the right path to go. And that's how we gain momentum by momentum. It's about accumulation of victory. It doesn't have to be, at breakneck speed and break everything. Cadence and rhythm of change is important, and also leadership is constant struggle to make change happen. If it's not constant, it's not leadership. If there's no struggle, there's no need for leaders. So it's constant struggle to make change happen, but then you have to show the direction of where you want to change, and then constantly, bit by bit, finally we'll get there. Just like how South Korea did.
Well, you talked about the words that you used, the rhythm, the sustainable change. It sounds soft, yet your opposition seems like they're trying to frame you as maverick, or actually beyond maverick, revolutionist. Your party and yourself is described as, what is it called? Social progressive. Yet, what they've successfully done, or is trying to do, is they're trying to put you as someone who's really against tradition, something that is going to threaten what Thailand makes Thailand. And they're doing it. They're doing quite successfully right now. And what you said was, only way to overcome that is by winning election, but obviously you need the people's backing. So for example, from outsiders, what you have achieved, and this came about in our yesterday's conversation, I was fascinated is the fact that from outsiders' point of view, you are very popular among the young people. And when we associate with the young people, change, progressive, always go hand in hand in a way. Yet you are able to successfully gather support from even elderly generation and some military, the establishment as well. How are you able to do that? Is that also a hope or sign that it's not just about young people, it's not just about people at the bottom, but it's that throughout the Thailand that everybody actually want this change?
Well, first I have to reconcile with your question first. I feel like all around the world, not just Thailand, but to level people. Okay, first part of the question asked whether I'm a reformist or a revolutionist. That's essentially
That was my sense question.
Part
right,
of the
exactly.
question. I'm a reformist. We want to reform to deter revolution.
Okay.
We feel like if we're not the common ground, if we're not the consensus, if we're not the middle path, something stronger than reform might happen. So I'm a reformist that's trying to move the country forward to deter revolution, something that is too radical to be able to control. And that will destabilize Thailand, that will destabilize ASEAN, that will destabilize Asia. So that's something that we don't want. We want to be able to control the cadence of our reform and leave no one behind, to be extremely clear on that.
Okay.
The second part, yes, we're part of Progressive Alliance, Social Democrats all around the world. So think German SPD, think Sana Marines, SDP, think Jacinda Ardern's Labour Party. So we're part of the same association called Progressive Alliance. But I feel like nowadays it's so outdated to put people in political spectrum, whether it's conservative or progressive or liberal or neo-conservative and all that. For us, the political calculus or the political spectrum changed from horizontal to vertical.
Right.
Is that 1% against that 99%? Is those monopolies that enjoy majority of the wealth in Thailand, according to Oxfam, 1% holds 70% of the wealth. So it's really not putting someone into last name that Mr. Lee is conservative and I'm a progressive. And also, we're from different countries. Conservative here is probably very liberal in Thailand, for example, or if you compare it to any other countries in the Middle East, for example, that's a wrong kind of comparison or the wrong kind of labeling of other people. But 1% and the 99%, the aggressor and the aggressees, that's the kind of politics that we wanted to do. So it's not about gender, it's not about age, it's not about which zip codes you're from. It's about that 1% and that 99%, that 1% who has it all, the concentration of wealth, the kind of income that's from rent seeking, the ability to get closer to politics and power very easily because of the campaign finance that they do. So we want to represent that 99% rather. So because of that, that's why whether the newer generation or the younger generation or regions, that's not a problem for us. In Thailand, 76 districts, either we came number 1 or number 2, never number 3. Because of the way we think about this, and we don't think that the southern part of Thailand is conservative. That's not in our head at all. We just think that in the southern part of Thailand, regardless whether they're conservative or a liberal, what keeps them awake at night, and we try to find solutions for them. That's what we do. That's what we do.
I'm sitting here talking to you, and it seems very reasonable. You don't sound like, again, a revolutionist or outsider or just outlier, but it does seem like you're a disruptor for sure for what's happening in Thailand. But it seems like you got a lot to handle and a lot on the table because, when these type of, desire to change, and you're talking about the magnitude of change that only few countries has gone through in a way. And if there's a desire by the people to change, normally the constituencies, the people, the voters, they want to see it immediately. I mean, they really don't know how to wait that long. And what you have laid out is also that you're accepting the fact that this has to be a continuous effort and the change is to make sure that there is no major disruption in the way that Thai people live. So it seems like they voted for you and they're supporting you for that immediate change. Yet the change that the Thai system, whether that is a lack of democracy or just a checkbox, but really it is not. What if the gap seems a reality and the dream seems like there's a huge gap in Thailand right now. And
Yes.
actually you're going through that. I'm
Yes.
sure you're contemplating how to handle all these very difficult situations.
Or to be the bridge between the gap.
Exactly.
That's what you do.
Right. But the gap, it seems very huge.
And polarized,
And polarized.
because of various things, technology-wise. The algorithm in social media that keeps people more polarized in the way they think. So I feel like that was my value or my offering during the campaign election, to be the bridge,
Right.
to be the new consensus. Because of my age, at the age of 43, I understand the people who come before me, who come after me. Public-private sector,
Right.
that's the reason why I went to the public policy school as well as the business administration
right.
school, bachelor in finance and master at graduate school in politics. Boston Consulting Group, private sector, and also some experience in politics before running, and also the international side and the rural side of things. I mean, I could be in Sakonakon in Thailand talking about how to prevent rice mitigation or rice fumigation, and I could be in Tokyo Midtown negotiating about things. So that's why I said, I want to be the bridge between these things, so that finally Thailand has that kind of consensus, new consensus for new normal. So finally we can focus on the real issues going forward. Now that we talk about time, I want to ask you, or probably the organizer, is that the time remaining?
It is. We have 15 minutes.
So I'll be more concise with my answers then.
No, your answers are something very valuable, and it's a great opportunity for an audience who hasn't seen you talking.
Yeah, so
especially
our argument in our change, when someone wants to label me as a insurrection or treason or rebel or radical, I want to look them in the eye and ask them whether our change is too little, too slow, and too late, given what's going on around in the world, given the geopolitical hotspots that are coming all around the world, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Hamas, what's happening in Iran, the snap election in Britain,
Right.
the upcoming election in America, or whether it's the extreme weather, the climate change. It's exactly what the theme of this year is, the era of hyper uncertainty. So I'm asking them back when they call me a radical, too fast, too much, without thinking about things. Are we too slow? Are we too little? Are we too late to change? Do you want to disrupt or be disrupted? So those are the kind of things that, I want to get people to start thinking, otherwise it's a sticky message that you want to throw, and it happened in Thailand many, many times. Throughout my life, 43 years, every 10 years there'll be a political crisis, and then you throw someone's paint and call them a treason, insurrection, and they got to get out of politics, political lifetime ban and things like that. So it's a sticky message, that's for sure. But now it's a time to be mindful, and it's time to use logic and reasoning and look me in the eye and tell me whether I'm a treason or I'm an insurrection or I'm a rebel to the country or not. All I want to do is just to make sure that we're up on par with the international comparative in terms of competitiveness and nothing more.
You talked about Korea a little bit, but is there a role model country that you think Thailand should look at? I mean, all countries went through different history, different experiences, and no experience can be repeated exactly the same way. But if you had any role model country.
No. I think Thailand has to develop its own path and its own way of going forward. Obviously, I have some inspirations and I have some benchmarking that I do, but that remains that, the definition of Thainess referring to your first question and the two questions before this, the tradition. So who defines what Thainess is? Who defines what Koreanness is? It's up to the people of that country to really define what
By
that
the way,
definition
that
would be.
same index that I talked about,
Yeah?
put United States in the same category as a not full democracy. I don't know if it's a British black joke or whatever, but anyways, dark joke.
Yeah.
But just
Yes,
a side
yes.
note. But
So that's why I said, Thailand also, different time, different era. Even if I look up to South Korea, but we're talking about 1993 and 2024, which is totally different in every possible way. So I can't probably just say that South Korea is what Thailand has to copy and paste. But it could be an inspiration. It could be a model where high tech, high touch is the goal, because the size of our country, because of the size of our population, we don't have that kind of economies of scale like big countries have. You can't be low tech and low touch. And you can't keep the labor wage low and use that as the only competitiveness of your country. You got to use technology and creativity to boost your economy and while reducing inequality at the same time. Nordic countries, so Nordic countries are, social democratic values that comes while well-being budget, taking care of its people, as well as being innovative, environmental management, gender equality in that part of the world. I personally grew up in New Zealand. I grew up in Hamilton, New Zealand. I went to a school called St. John's College, and Jacinda Ardern went to University of Waikato. We are neighbors. She was born in 1980s. I was born in 1980s. So that's why we have a lot to talk about when it comes to when I arrived, and we have a lot to talk about. She's a mother, I'm a father,
Right.
at about the same time. So the way agriculture is maximized or decommoditized in New Zealand and in the Netherlands also draw inspiration to us as well, whether it's social, whether it's economic, education, or agriculture. Those are the things that we think that it could be a good inspiration for Thailand to go towards the goal, which is the high-tech, high-touch economy.
Right. I mean, I used to work for the World Economic Forum before I became a parliamentarian, but it's amazing how, although different countries have different policies, yet there are many ideas and policies that can be shared. And like you said, it could definitely be an inspiration for different countries. And going back to your first statement, I think the democracy, from the big picture, it really does play a huge role in opening up the minds, freeing the mind where creativity can foster and move that economy or the culture to next level. And I think that's something that is very valuable statement that you have made. And I just wish that that could be very successful in Thailand as well. Next question that I have is somebody that really asked me to ask you, is that assuming that you become the PM of Thailand tomorrow or even today, what are the 3 immediate actions you will take or policies you will pursue?
One is to reshuffle the cabinet.
Okay.
So the right person for the right job, educators for education, commercial person for commerce.
You're indicating that that's not the case right now.
I would agree to disagree. I would disagree to agree.
Okay.
So I feel like nothing personal against each of the cabinet members, but as a principled prime minister, I feel like people who are responsible in the cabinet should have that kind of specialization in the things that they are facing in terms of challenges, whether it's digital disruption, aging society, climate change. They should know what they're talking about. It's really important to me that I have the right person for the right job. Second thing would be economic stimulus while reducing inequality at the same time. So I have to be very clear to this that economy in Thailand is quite stagnated. It's quite bad. In fact, some news said that our first quarter is 1.5, where Indonesia, I want to say Malaysia or the Philippines or Vietnam is like 5 point something. Singapore is 2 point something, and Thailand is only 1 point something. So we are the second largest economy in ASEAN, but the second slowest, I want to say maybe Myanmar is worst. So the second slowest. In terms of our foreign direct investment, we are only above Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos, but behind the Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei, and all those things. So I feel like the economic stimulus have to be done, but that cannot be at the expense of our fiscal discipline. So you can do a lot of things to stimulate the economy, because GDP at 1.5. All of you economists out here will probably know that GDP is C plus I plus G plus X minus M, which is consumption, investment, and government spending. So I looked, and the problem with the Thai economy now is on the G, which is the government side.
Right.
It took some time to form the coalition and the government. And because of that, the government expenditure is not there. So I would focus on productive government expenditure on healthcare, on education, on building infrastructure, and then that minus 20% of GDP will come up by itself. But at the same time, I'm not sacrificing fiscal discipline and also help elevating the people well-being at the same time. So I think that's important, because any politician or any prime minister or candidate will always say we have to stimulate the economy as the first priority, right? But there's a caveat to it that, stimulating short-term economy by risking long-term, that's not the right thing to do for us to think about that.
You talk about fiscal discipline, yet one of your campaign or one of your slogans was to increase the national pension monthly payment.
Yes.
From almost $20 to $100. That's a huge increase.
Approximately, depending on the exchange rate of the day.
Right. But
yes.
4 or 5 times more than what they receive right now.
Yes.
Which I presume is way too low right now. So I'm sure
It's
there
still
is a
way
need.
too low.
Right.
That's per month, by the way. If like someone watching from developed countries and is at $100, but that's per month.
Right.
For people who are 60 and above. And I feel like the kind of welfare system that's relying on pension can be funded through demilitarization, that I said in the past, that the budget is relocated from defense and investing in roads and stuff, but invest in our people. Because of your previous remark.
Right.
At our age, we're at the ham in the sandwich. We have to take care.
Thanks for reminding me.
We have to take care of our parents,
Right.
and we have to take care of our children.
Yes.
We're at that age. So for me to be entrepreneurial, or for the people in our generation, which is like the middle class and the middle age, to really take risk, to have that kind of appetite to take risk, without this kind of some social protection or some network, it's very hard for us to take risks. That's why we just ended up in the job that we hate for a very long time until we are retired. But if we take care of our elderly, aging society, also not just the pension side, but also to find them jobs after retirement, do universal design so that we have some care economy. Care economy is just turning that liability into an asset, for example. These couple of things, it can be done. And finally, it becomes an opportunity for us, because we are the only country that are aging. If we crack this code, this care economy, this silver economy, it could be replicated in South Korea, in Japan, in America, and Europe, where the population is aging also. But let me return, because we only have 3 minutes. Because you asked for top 3, I only asked for 2.
Okay. Let's go for maybe one more, because I did have another question.
Number 3, I think, is social problems, which is drugs and online scams. I think that's what keeps people awake at night in Thailand. Back to you.
Okay. Going back to I just wanted to make a comment that it sounds like it was a very well planned out campaign, because you talked about the 3 Ds, monopoly, demilitary, and decentral. And it was not just about the claim that this is what you need to achieve in Thailand to check the box that it really needs to have a sound institutions and good democracy. Yet you were able to weave that through or reflect that on your policy, where you can actually have a pension reform and also retaining the physical soundness or discipline. So it seems like you had a very successful yet very well thought out campaign. My last question, only 2 minutes. Again, this is another question was asked to me, but to ask you. What is a Pita's perfect Thailand look like?
PETA's perfect Thailand looks like a single mother that could work one job and have the ability to return home and have a meal with her family.
It's very simple.
Because that's not the case at all. I'm using it as an example that there's many struggling population that have to work 2 jobs far away from home. That's why they see each other every Thai New Year. They have to leave, very far from northern part of Thailand and go work in Bangkok or even in Seoul. There's a lot of laborers, a lot of workers here in South Korea that they had to maybe 2 or 3 years they have the ability to return and see their own children. So that kind of simple dream is actually very tough, and it synchronizes with what I had in terms of decentralization. So finally there's jobs that you go to work and then you can return home and have a lovely meal with your family every day rather than every 2 years, because they have to come here in South Korea, and they can have a decent work-life balance so that, and also the right to work. Not everybody has the right to work in various parts of the world. So, the kind of decent job and the kind of satisfying, productive job in order for them to do. And regardless of their personal situation, whether they're a perfect family, not perfect family, perfect body or imperfect body, whichever gender that they want to belong to and whichever zip code that they were born in, they have that kind of ability to have an equal, at least an equal chance to have a decent life in Thailand. As simple as that.
Something that we all trying to achieve. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Kun Pita. Sorry that we didn't have time to
Thank you so much.
open up
Thank
the
you for
floor
your
for
time.
any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll have a 10-minute break, and please come back at 5 p.m.